Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life. Hey everybody, welcome back. In this episode, I've got my good friend Mike Green, formerly of U.S. Army Special Forces, now owner of Green Ops, which is a pretty renowned firearms instructional company. You guys, if you're in that space, you should definitely know of it. And we're just going to talk about training, whether military, martial arts, or shooting, and see where it takes us. So real quick, Mike, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background and about yourself?
Right on. Well, thanks for having me here, Matt. It's good to see you again. I started my journey off, I guess, in the military. My dad was in the military, so it was kind of a thing that I grew up thinking that I was going to go in the military. He was traveled a lot. We were stationed in different locations, and my grandfather, my great grandfather were all in the military. So my assumption, or what I wanted to do was I wanted to go in the military. And then, starting, in high school, middle school, stuff like that, I was in the martial arts. So that, I think, kind of pushed that idea of going into the military a little bit more. And then I went in, I started off in the National Guard, and then I went on active duty. And then after the Q course, I went on active duty. And then I went to third group when they were first standing up. We were in the old World War II barracks over in the 82nd area. And then after that, I went to language school because I didn't go to language school in the Q course. So I was able to go to language school in Monterey, California. I don't know if the Army got its money's worth for that. But when I came back, I went to 7th Group, did time in 7th Group, did an instructor tour at SWCC, did some USAC time, went back to the 7th Group, went to Charlie 37. I got out because I was recruited to go to a program for one of the government agencies. I got out, and right before I got out, they closed that program down. It was compromised, and then I ended up going to work with Triple Canopy. I know we both worked at Triple Canopy at the same time or similar time, and then I contracted, did some stuff, got to. USIS had a contract with the ERU. So I went over there, ran into my good old buddy, Johnny Nettles. And then from there, I got some other contracts, and then started working stateside training a lot more in between, being overseas. Started working more government stuff. And then at the same time, somebody said, hey, why don't you, do some training on the civilian world, and opened the floodgates. After that, it just kind of, worked itself out. It wasn't anything that was a planned thought. And then, but once it starts, then you just go with it, and got a really, really awesome crew of folks that I work with. Phenomenal. I mean, just the instructors that I work with, it's almost like being back on an ODA. Everybody, is different, but they all get along and they all add value, and I think that's about it, unless I missed something, maybe because of my age.
Yeah, a couple things I didn't realize, my friend. I didn't realize, because I knew you were a martial artist a long time, but I didn't realize you started before the Army. And that kind of resonates with me, because that was kind of my dad was in the service. My grandfather served in World War II, the same kind of background, right? And then the thing that really cemented it for me when I was a kid was starting martial arts and wanting that warrior's life, the warrior lifestyle, right? What did you train in back then?
Back then, well, I started off, I did a couple classes in karate for about a year, but then the thing that I really, we moved, excuse me, being in the military, or my dad being in the military, we moved, and the longest place we spent was after my parents separated. And I did Hung Gar Kung Fu, which I found out not long ago that our good friend, God, I'm so bad at this time. Leo, not Leo. The shooting program, I can't remember. He's got the pin for the shooting.
Oh, yeah, Gabe White. Gabe.
Ah,
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Gabe did do Hung Gar.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool. I always forget Gabe's name, man. I'm so bad.
Dude, I love Gabe.
Oh yeah.
My old partner from Chicago PD, I don't know if you ever met him or not, Vince Jameson. Really, really solid dude. He's got a Ranger tab. He taught for a while at Benning, and he's a big time. He teaches firearms for the police department still, even though he's retired. They brought him back as a contractor.
Wow.
And he calls Gabe the king of F around and find out, because he's such an unassuming guy. Like, you would just never realize, like, just what a formidable foe this guy would be at face value. And I always like that, because it's some people you can see it, and some people you just don't know until it happens. And I think that's an interesting thing,
Yeah, no, that's a great definition of Dave, because you most people would never assume that.
Yeah, and he's just so solid. Plus, he's just such a good dude too.
Yeah.
Just good people.
Yeah.
And I also didn't know, the other thing I didn't realize is that you started out in a guard group before you went active. Was it 19th or 20th?
It was 20th, out of Alabama, out of Huntsville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's when I was in high school. One of the guys I worked with, or not worked with, but one of the guys I was in high school with, his dad was the ops warrant officer, and I had already had a reserve contract that I was looking at going into, and he was like, hey, when you after basic, come see me, and we'll work something out. And so I didn't get to go straight through as a rep 63, but it was pretty close to that.
Yeah.
As a young 18, 19-year-old kid, I got to go to schools. Just, it wasn't all back to back to back, like in 1 year. It was spread out maybe over 2 years.
That's really probably better. Really.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I think it gives you, I think the back to back, I mean, I know a lot of like really like squared away 18 X-rays and rep 63s, but there's such an attrition rate because they don't get time to assimilate the stuff. It's just, it's sink or swim. And like, honestly, and I want to get your thought on this, because this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize. A lot of people don't realize, they don't understand about 19th and 20th. And honestly, like, that's such a good opportunity for young people. Like, it really is.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's a great way to get into the community. I think, whether you decide to go active or stay in 19th or 20th. And like, I almost went active after the Q course, because I'd been active as infantry in Ranger Regiment. And then I got out and I went through the pipeline for 20th group. And then I was thinking about going active, but right around that time was like right around the time Mogadishu happened. Right. So for me, I was afraid that we were going to just be benched, doing nothing but fit. So I decided to that's why I became a Chicago cop. That was how I was going to get my action and stay in 20th group and, still be in the community and, do FID missions and do all the training classes and courses and be around the brotherhood. Right. So I got to tell you, man, for me, that was, and it was one of those things where I kind of I happened into it. It wasn't like it was some master plan, right? I can't say that I had, some brilliant vision of how my life should be. But it worked out better for me, I think, than going active would have been. Like, it really gave me kind of a unique life, and I don't regret any of it, man. It was fantastic.
Yeah, no, 100%. I see that, and I think I would caveat that when you said it's good for young people, I've seen older folks, go in, and they are like fish in water, I mean, they go through, they're more mature. they already have a skill set. They're usually working in an environment where they already work around other special forces people, maybe like maybe contracting. I don't know. There was at least 3, maybe 4 guys I worked with in Triple Canopy that ended up going back into the military or into the National Guard because they worked around other special forces guys in Triple Canopy as contractors. And then like law enforcement guys that I know who, worked around guys that were on their department were like, you know what, I think I'm too old. And then somebody would tell them, well, like when I went through, as a matter of fact, there was a guy, when I went through selection, it was a National Guard guy who was 40 years old,
Yeah.
And man, he crushed it.
Yeah. One of the guys in my Q course was from 20th, and he was 39 and just rocked it, just like solid.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome, man. I tell folks the same thing. I tell, especially folks that are like getting out. Like I work around, or I see people that are in the military that are constantly getting out, and they know that I spent some time in, and they'll ask, and I'll tell them, I go, hey, one thing is I highly recommend that when you get out, that you stay somehow in the Guard or Reserve, because the benefits are there. I mean, they're huge. They may be delayed, but when you retire, it'll be about the time that you're probably retiring from another job. And then, bam, you got 2. And the best is like your position in law enforcement. I met another guy in Florida who was in the Guard, and he made close to 6 figures on his retirement with the PD. But then with his retirement plus Social Security, the guy was living large. Like he didn't have to work,
Yeah, no, I always joke. The joke I give is that I got over. I accidentally found out a way to play the system because I did basically half each of 2 careers as I was bouncing back and forth so much. But you get credit for a full career for both.
Yeah. And if you're a field like law enforcement or some government organization or something like that, then the training you get in the Guard you can use or put into your civilian law enforcement records, and vice versa. If you get some course that meets a standard, then it can work out. Where I've seen guys who are working, like as a DoD civilian somewhere, who's an E6 or an E7, and then but they're a government GS, I don't know, 14 or 15, and they're going to war college. I mean, how many E7s have the war college or something like that under their belt? And it's interesting to see that. I had one buddy. He was I first met him. He was an E7 in the Guard, and I was an instructor. Actually, he was an IMA guy. So in SWCC, we had these IMA billets.
Yeah.
And so he would come like once a year or every other year. He would come for 2 weeks, and that's all he did, and he was a State Department guy. And when he retired from the State Department, he was like Colin Powell's #1 man. Like he carried his briefcase, I mean, but in the rank position for the State Department, he was pretty high up, but he was an enlisted guy in SF, and man, he had it all. I mean, he was the warrior diplomat, literally. He was a diplomat, and it was awesome to hear him speak as like when he was an E7, he spoke like a diplomat, and you were just like, wow, what is it? Who is this guy? But when it came to getting dirty and getting down and doing work, he rolled his sleeves up like everybody else, so yeah.
Well, that's one of the great things I think about the SF community, whether you're talking active or in the Guard. But you really see it a lot in the Guard, I think, because of the nature of the dual careers.
Yeah.
But you get people that just have, like, you might have a Charlie who's, a general contractor. You might have, I was an ASO guy for a while on my team. And at the time, my job on the police department I was a supervisor of the detective bureau. Those two things were like, they were like this,
Yeah.
And are like, later on, I was running the training for SWAT, and I was running our company level training team for 20th Group. And it was like, there's so many parallels and they feed into each other so much. And I think it makes you, because one of the strengths about SF is the varied skill sets that everybody brings to the table, and the ability for that ODA to do things that a normal military unit would need all kinds of red tape and other units to help out, but everybody just kind of gets in and does it together, right?
Yeah.
And those backgrounds, I think, really help both ways. They help people in the civilian world that are in 20th and 19th, and they help the guys on the ODA because you're bringing that stuff to the table. I don't know. What do you think?
No, 100%. I remember when I was in 7th group, they sent us to augment 20th group, was doing a rotation at JRTC down in, is that Louisiana?
Yeah. Fort Polk. Well,
yeah. And, so there was a handful of us that went down there to help these guys out, and we quickly found out that organizational wise of daily activities, that's where we came in, because we did this on a daily basis. We set up a log book, all the typical stuff you would have in a command center. Like that's the kind of stuff that we did on a daily basis. So we knew how to do all that, and we did that. But once the mission started, and someone I think some of the cadres said, or I don't know what they call them, observers, said something about a legal thing, whatever. And this dumpy old, the guy had to be in this almost at least close to 60. I don't know how old he was, but he was the quiet guy that never said anything. And they said something about legal stuff. And this guy got up in a thick Southern accent, and it sounded like he was reading some kind of a law dictionary or something like that. He just started spewing law left and right at these guys, and they didn't know how to react because everything he said, he based on he was quoting previous case law and stuff like that.
Yeah. Legal precedents in case law. Yeah.
Just off the top of his head, but it was like he was reading it. It was so well scripted, And I lean over to, the major from 20th group. And I'm like, hey, what's up with that? And I'm like, oh, that dude, he's a lawyer. He owns a law firm. E6, I was like, get out of here, man.
Well, yeah. And like there are 18 Deltas that are like ER surgeons. I mean, it's,
Yeah. They own their own practices and stuff like that. You're absolutely right. I met a guy who was a civil engineer out of Florida, was an 18 Charlie. And he said, I was talking to him about the engineer course, and he was like, well, he goes, the 6 months in the 18 Charlie course, or four months of the actual 18 Charlie portion is South Am West days. He said, it's kind of like your bachelor's degree in civil engineering. And he goes, but in civil engineering, it's easier because you have time to absorb it. And then, he goes, but the difference was, he said, we're doing the same stuff in theory, but he goes, we didn't go out and build a bridge in college. He goes, here they teach us theory, and then you go out and then you actually do it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we did. We got out there and we did design work. We did engineering. You do your drainage and all this other stuff. You have a theory on that, talk about it, and then you actually go out and you start building, So yeah. But to have someone at that level who did it full time, it was just like, wow. Because, my thought was like, hey, an 18 Charlie is probably not as good as a civil engineer. And he was like, maybe in some aspects, but, you're more well-rounded, with stuff like that, So yeah, it really depends. I like you said, I met phenomenal folks from the Guard that just had amazing skills. I mean, when I taught the CFAL committee, I worked with Nettles and Frank Proctor and Daryl Conrad. I mean, guys that are just
those are my guys, man. Those are, I love those guys.
Amazing, phenomenal people, the passionate, I miss those guys.
So I got to tell you a story about Daryl. So, let me give a little background for the people listening and watching. So I have known shorter Green Berets, but not many.
Yeah.
Daryl has these little hands, right? And they're all palm and no finger. Like if you ever look at him, like it's like his digits are like down to my first knuckle, but his palms are the size of mine.
Wow.
And I love Daryl. He's such a good dude, right? But he's on the catwalk in one CFALC. And one thing about not so much on SWAT in Chicago because they got really squared away. But in the earlier stages of my SF career, where I had done more CQB as a cop than I had as a SWAT guy, verbal comms are done a lot more on the police side because just there's a bunch of reasons we can probably get into in a second, but let's just take it at that so I can tell the punchline, right? So Daryl is yelling at me from the catwalk. Is there anything else you want to tell us, cop? Just be quiet and do your job. And I looked at, he's like doing the knife hand the world at me, right? And I looked up, I was like, hey, Daryl, you got no digits, man. How do you shoot a rifle? You're all palms.
Oh, geez, man. How did he react on that? I'm scared.
He cursed me up and down, but it was all in good. It was all in good. You know, we knew each other. You know what I mean? It was all in good spirit. Yeah. So, and I wouldn't be a competitive shooter at all if it wasn't for Frank. Frank got me into it.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. He said something. I posted something. He posted an awesome video of him shooting. Amazing to watch him shoot, you know. And he's like, hey, I just, wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for you and Daryl. And I was like, wow, like that's amazing to, to say something like that. Like he's a phenomenal shooter, I mean, he could like shoot circles around me, and he could sit there and say something like that. It's really humbling, but we've got, I mean, just a ton of guys. I mean, like there's like people probably look at Frank and think, oh, he's naturally gifted. That guy worked. He worked his butt off.
Yeah. No, he worked hard at it. And that's another guy who's just, and Daryl too. Like I'm telling a joke about how I mouthed off to him, but he was the consummate instructor. Like he was incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly competent. Yeah. And here's the thing about like internal training in the groups is that it's not like, and people have this image of military training as being very kind of almost cutthroat. People are yelling and screaming at you, and if you don't get it, but that's not really the way it is in the community. It's people want you to succeed.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's, I'm not saying there aren't standards. And if you don't make the standards, of course you won't succeed. That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is there's a mentorship that people don't realize looking at it from the outside, I think. Yeah. And the thing that always amazed me about like, not just those guys, but like SF guys in general, but it definitely those guys for sure, is all these little tweaks to make things go better, both technical, procedural, tactical, like all these little things that they're always thinking about how to do their job better. Like there's never a moment where they're doing their job where they're not like, how can I make this work better? How can I make this more effective? How can I be better at this task? And then for the instructors, it's how can I get other people to be better at this task? Like, what can I say? What coaching cues can I use? How can I get this across so that people grasp it and can understand it and can get good at it? And I don't know if that comes from like our pipeline and the way we're selected, or if it comes from like the teaching experience, because a lot of what SF does is teach other troops. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's a combination thereof. I've read a really good book called it's my memory again. The Talent Wars, I believe it was. Talent Wars. And it was basically about characteristics of what people are looking for in the business world. And I said, it was really unique because they're looking for people with experience. And they're like, if the SOF community hired people based on experience only, then they would have a bunch of people from foreign SOF come over and work for them, because nobody in the US military starts off with SOF experience. And I thought that's pretty radical, thought. And then they talked about the selection process. You think about all the tests that we took, the written tests and the psychological tests and stuff like that. Those are weeding us out before we even got to selection. They're looking for people with certain characteristics. And then the other thing that I just read not long ago was a book. I think Emily Duckworth called Grit was the name of the book.
Yeah, I've seen that. Book.
And so when I read stuff like that, and they talk about the SOF community, and I can envision it and see it, and like you said, I remember conventional officers would always say stuff when we interacted with them. You SF guys are lazy, but like you said, we're always thinking about how to make it better. and if lazy is the solution to do something better and quicker and faster and still get the job done, but better, then yeah, I'll be lazy. You know what I mean? Because we're constantly, doing that. Like I was hurting for jumps because we were working so much that I went over and jumped with the 82nd. And it took me all day to jump with those guys. And it's just like, how, why, but when we jump with St. Mary, you bring the tarp out, you bring the chutes, do your pre-jump, line the chutes up. And by the time you were ready, putting your gear on, the plane was landing. It was being inspected while you were kitting up. You got on the plane and jumped, and you were probably at work by, before 9, it's like, why does the rest of the military have to take something fun and turn it into a disaster and take all, like, what is there a reason why you have to be in your chute for hours at a time? Like, no, how about we shoot up right before we get onto the aircraft, So I've learned the other thing is, and it's easy, probably easier for you to see, coming from the Guard and seeing going back and forth. But for me, being, on active duty for so long and then stepping away, because I got out from active duty in 2005. And so we're talking 20 years, right? And the interesting thing is that the further removed I am from the SOF community, the more that I realize that the answer or solution to any major problem is an ODA, and you think about it, it falls in line with some of the, the stuff that we used to probably make fun of, like the soft truths, like SOF can't do it alone. Well, that's 100% right. If you think about it, if you took an ODA, 12 guys, put them in a room and said, hey, you have to find the cure for this disease, they wouldn't just look at the medic. They would probably bring in a specialist, a couple of doctors, and scientists, and say, hey, teach us how you do what you do. And then they would make it better. I had worked a counter IED project, and it was a soft program, but they brought in regular analysts, Army analysts, and then they brought in some counter drug cops that did analyticals type stuff, like you see on the wall where they put the yarn, the photos and stuff. And we use link analysis, right? So we did that with link analysis, and they had a greatly different way of looking at the problem set. And then when I had my first target pack and I went forward and I presented it, and I had to go through the regular conventional military side and some other intel organization. They looked at my stuff, and the head guy was retired 20-year military analyst, and then went for, this OGA or whatever that he's working for. And he looked at our stuff and he was like, this is the most messed up shit I ever saw, son, And I'm like, well, that's the way I was trained to do it, buddy. So I'm submitting as per my boss, unless you are going to deny that. And he's like, well, I guess, like, go ahead. And the next day, an ODA from 10th Group sits there and sends back the old, the money shot, the AAR, the guy they caught with all of the IEDs, like right behind him, just laid out. And it was like, wow. He's like, I can't believe that was right. He's like, how'd you do that? Because we didn't link people to people. We were linking them to a location or some kind of work or some kind of association, not necessarily people, And it was not, like 100% like, hey, SOF did this. No, they took a regular military analyst and they said, hey, you're great at this. Show us how you do link analysis. Because, in the 18 Fox course, they teach it, and then they said, okay, well, let's take this cop who does the same thing. Let's show us your link analysis. And then they took all three methods, the SF way, the law enforcement way, and then the military intel way, and just combined it together and created this process by just it's almost like that joke. What's Ameridote,
Yes. Master Ken. I love Master Ken.
Best of all, worst of none. And that's what they did, and it was a bunch of enlisted knuckleheads that probably none of them had a degree, they were just putting it together. And it was so successful that on deployments that we would have commanders request for us by name. And I was like, look, if it's not counter IED related. We can't really help. And they would like make stuff up so they could say, well, we've got this problem set. Oh, it's an IED related thing, because it was so successful. It was so good. And after that, they wanted to start teaching it. And then we did. I think we taught it. We worked ourselves out of a job. They started hiring people to do it that probably didn't understand the concept of it, because you had to be kind of an outside the box thinker to begin with. But it worked really great. I've seen that type of stuff over and over and over again, where these guys will get together and they'll just give them a problem and they'll solve it, or make the world a lot better. And I honestly think that it's not necessarily it's not necessarily soft people or Green Berets or anything like that. But I look at, after reading that book, Talent Wars, I realize it's the attributes. I mean, we've ran into, and I'm sure you have too, I've ran into folks who are almost identical to our thought process, but never spent a day in their life in the military, not to mention being Green Berets, but you click with them like that. And they have those same characteristics, they want to get stuff done. They want to problem solve. They want to get after it. They don't want to stop until it's done right, So I'm a firm believer that, it's, that old, what did Colonel Troutman tell Rambo? He's like, it's always been in there. I just kind of chipped away at it, and they'd,
it's like it's like the Michelangelo cliche, right? It's a block of marble, but the statue's in there.
Yeah.
All he does is chip away the pieces that don't look like David.
Mm-hmm. And that's what SF does. It's a really good environment. Like you said, I remember I was a teenager when I went to the Q course, I mean,
oh, wow.
I was 19. I knew everything, and you couldn't, and I argued with everybody, and then the guys in the Q course were all NCOs, and they just like, hey, dude, like, we're trying to fucking help you, like we're trying to help you, buddy. And it just continued on after that, just the ODAs that I went to, all these guys just left such a great impression on me that, once I matured up enough to realize that what they're saying isn't a personal attack on me. It gave me the ability to look inside and go, okay, what are my faults? Because if you tell someone, I mean, think about it from an instructional point, you tell somebody that they're wrong, they instantly try to justify, and we see it. I mean, sometimes I'll even find myself doing the same thing and have to like pull myself back when someone says, hey, you did this wrong, and instead of going, well, I did it because, it doesn't matter why you did it. The point is it was wrong. Okay. So once I realized that, it just said, okay, let me think about the technique that they're talking about, not think about how I did something wrong. I became a better learner. And I think a better teacher at that same time, because you have to find a way to tell the student without telling them, hey, you're all messed up, like, hey, it might be better if you try this.
And I think that's one of the big strengths of the SF community, like kind of so like groups and organizations and teams all have personalities, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And they're distinct from the personality of the individuals. Like the group has a personality of its own.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You could talk to an SF guy for 10 minutes and you could probably say, oh, I know you were in third group, dude, or you were in first group. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's just, it's just kind of the culture, right?
Yeah.
But I think that and this helped me a lot as a cop, once I realized I had to apply it there too.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be honest, when I first started becoming a Chicago cop, I kind of had this, it wasn't really intentional. I think it was subconscious, right? But I had this bit of an arrogance about, I'm a Green Beret, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because of that, there were times where I butted heads with some people when I really shouldn't have. I really should have just shut up and done my job.
Yeah.
And then once I realized I had to treat it like I was brand new on an ODA, it's not about what I've done. It's about what can I do now and how can I learn to do this job and how can I be part of the team and contribute and get along with the team members in a way that contributes to the mission. Like once I got that through my thick head, things got a lot better for me on the job. Once I realized I had to act the same way there, right? But I think that the culture on an ODA with the AARs and the way you're treated, it lends itself well to objective self-analysis.
Yeah.
Because when the AAR happens, you want to be the one to say you messed up. You don't want somebody else to point it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did this wrong. Here's what I should have done.
Yeah.
Because that's like, you don't win by hiding the mistake, because trust me, everybody knows you made it. You win by owning up to it and fixing it. How you win by failing quickly.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, like, if I could teach one aspect of the SF community to people that want to succeed anywhere in life, it's that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just own it. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody does things that are wrong. Don't try to justify it. Don't try to hide it. Just go, yeah, I did this, and here's how I'm going to fix it and not do it again.
Yeah. And that's hard to do, man. I mean, that's extremely hard to do. Because you naturally think, justification wise, and it may be a justification to you, but it doesn't stop the point that you're trying to learn something new, and it's interesting because, especially like in the martial arts world, you have people of different sizes and configurations, and you'll hear it constantly from like newer students. Well, I'm not built that way. It's like, there's millions of people do this martial art. You can do it too, I mean, it's like, and you hear it in shooting, oh, my hands are, they won't fit on the gun right. Like, this gun is issued to every police department out there pretty much, or at least, 50% or more. And they have people of all shapes and sizes, and they're passing the quals, so.
Yeah. Or like, Angela, is,
oh yeah,
she's got like little Smurfette hands, right? But she can shoot a full size open gun with the big fat polymer grip, no problem, because she's got good technique. It's not, we all have limitations, right? Everybody's got physical limitations. It's just, I mean, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, I mean, I am the missing link. Like I look like a Sasquatch that manscapes. Like, that's just the way I'm built, right? And there are some things that helps me with, and there are other things where it's a real hindrance, but it doesn't matter. I can't change it. I just have to figure out how to make it work for me.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. Like, going back to kind of what you were saying a minute ago. I think one of the beautiful things about the way an ODA works, and this is something people who haven't been in any sort of special operations may not get, is that you're not really the masters of all this stuff. There's too many things. There's too many skill sets. There's too many things you have to be good at.
Yeah.
What you're masters of is figuring it out. That's what you're the master of.
Yeah.
And like that kind of mindset, like, taking that into anything in life and going, so, I may not be, going back to your point about shooting, right? So I may not have big farm boy strong hands like Robert Vogel, but I've got to make this grip work. How do I make it work for me?
Yeah.
And I think that mindset helps people a lot to succeed in life.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. 100%, man. It's amazing, because I think the things that you point out is like, we're not the masters of, and people constantly, you hear it all the time. Like, people are like, soft guys are not the best shooters. Soft guys aren't the best martial artists, and soft guys aren't the best this and this and that. It's like, well, I mean, if you think about it, maybe they are in some aspects, because they're not good at one specific task. They're great at all of them put together,
Yeah.
And we look at stuff like think about it, like USPSA is a great example, or IDPA, right? You take somebody who's a bullseye shooter, and I'm not going to be able to shoot with a bullseye shooter and be as accurate. They're going to crush me. They're going to not only get 100 but several X's out of that. You know what I mean? But let's go to the range and do some shooting and moving. And I don't have the fastest draw. I don't have the fastest reload. When you combine that together, though, overall, you're up there. You're up in the standings, if not in the top place, right? And I kind of think of like MMA. We look at MMA, we look at martial arts, and people are like, oh, you have to have a black belt in jiu-jitsu to be a good MMA guy. And then you see these guys who are wrestlers, or someone like, I think BJ Penn was a purple belt, and you have all these guys who just are good at here, not great, but good at these few things. They put it together, and next thing you know, they're really great at the transitions in between them, and they're winning now, So I think it's really hard to say that, you have to be the best. And definitely we know, the school methodology, of course, at the Q course was jack of all trades, masters of none. We heard it time and time again. And I got to say, there's a lot to be said about that. Yeah, we're not the best, but we do have individuals that once they put their minds to it, they definitely can be the best at one of those individual sets of skills, But
well, like a great example, I think, going back to the MMA reference, right? So look at George St. Pierre, karate background.
Yeah.
No wrestling background, no grappling background. I mean, I believe he's got a BJJ black belt now, but this is years after this.
Yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning, he was having issues with takedowns and submissions, right? And that guy, like within a year, looked like he'd been a D1 wrestler, like within a year.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of adaptability, I think, that you're talking about,
Yeah, definitely. And those traits, I think that's the traits that somehow, the testing that they give us and stuff like that they're looking for, is people who are either have those traits already or moldable to those traits that can adapt to those environments.
So I got another joke for you. So I think I figured it out. I think I figured out what they're looking for with the 53,000 MMPI tests we took, right? God, we took that test so many times. But I think I know what they're looking for. So if you make a chart, right? And on the x-axis from least to most, you chart ADHD. On the y-axis from most to least, you chart OCD. Where that X meets in the middle is the perfect Green Beret. A functional amount of both, right? Just enough of each to keep you on task and not want to give up and want to be the best at it when you're given a job. Like
that's a pretty accurate statement, I'd say. Because everybody's got a quirk of somehow they've got a huge quirk of that. Each of the soft guys we've worked with, I'm sure of.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that's what they're looking for. I don't think they'd articulate it that way, and they certainly never told me what they were looking for. But I bet you that's it.
Yeah. I would have to say that it probably spells it out in the talent code, or not talent code, Talent Wars.
Right.
That's probably because they go into it probably in greater detail. It's been a while since I read that, but yeah, definitely. I mean, there's definitely certain characteristics that are going to not be the perfect person that they think they're looking for, but a conglomeration of little quirks,
Yeah. Well, I always liked the line that, they're not looking for the best person, they're looking for the right person.
Yeah. No doubt. But yeah, and the folks today, I don't know if you've worked with any of the folks that are in the newer soft folks. I've heard varying things, but I've worked with them. Deployed overseas. Worked with the active duty guys overseas. I was doing training in Texas with preparing folks to go overseas, civilians and government folks and military. And so I got the luxury. I got invited to go down to Fort Bragg to Third Group. They ran a low visibility course, the 2-week one.
Yeah.
And I was, me and one other guy were the only 2 civilians in this course. You had ODAs there, and wow, I mean, talk about motivated, intelligent, and they were like, "Oh, you were in Third Group when they first stood up. Tell us some war stories about Third Group." I was like, "Oh, the World War II barracks and stuff like that," but they were smarter than we were. They were faster, stronger, brilliant, more capable. I mean, you name it. And I hear these people talk about the young generation and that. And I'm telling you, man, every time I work with the soft guys today, it's like, wow, I don't know where they get them from, but they are definitely red-blooded Americans that are us times 100, and it's impressive. It's impressive because I had almost entire ODAs tell me that they wanted to get out of the military and go do, law enforcement or government stuff and stuff like that. I'm like, why? And they're like, because they're not sending us to war. I'm like, isn't that strange? You have a bunch of people that are ready to go and a bunch of people who don't want to go. And who do we send?
Yeah.
Folks that don't want to go, but yeah, it's amazing. I can't say enough good stuff about those guys. And I hear guys like my age or in their 50s that are talking shit about these young kids, and I'm like, man, have you worked with them? Because they're definitely have a different out of the box thinking protocol than we did. And to me it's refreshing.
So I had a kid come through one of my shooting classes right after he got out of the Q course.
Mm.
He was on leave and he was driving through. It was a local class here in Texas. And he was driving through to go see his dad before he shipped out to Hawaii, first group, right? Or no, it's not Hawaii, sorry, Okinawa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why I said Hawaii. And this kid was just solid. I mean, just solid. Just like great attitude, no ego, amazing athlete, incredibly intelligent, motivated. Like, just, if he is any indication of the current group of people coming through, we have nothing to worry about. Like, he was just, he's actually on a SIF team now.
Oh, wow.
So just good kid.
Yeah, they're smart, man. They're, they do the research. They're all intelligent, highly intelligent. It seems like a lot of them already have degrees, college degrees, before they even come in the military. And it's just, and the pipelines, the training has gotten, it's definitely gotten better. And there's some things that they're doing that I'm sure people are going to complain about. But when you look at the pre-selection programs that they have, and I was at I can't remember the name of the base. I think it's called Chapman now, but it had another name. But it's an Air Force base in San Antonio there, and we were utilizing one of the ranges, and there was I think a group of PJs. They just passed selection, so they weren't PJs yet. They were still in the pipeline, and they I don't know, one of them messed up or something on the range, and from the tower they call his roster number or whatever, start doing push-ups. And when you take the Army PTs, or used to have the push-ups, and you started off as fast as you could, for maybe 30 seconds. Maybe some guys could do a whole minute before, but no one, not very many people could do the whole 2 minutes as fast, right?
Yeah.
This kid sat there and did push-ups, and I swear it had to be more than 5 minutes, just like he had started at that 30-second level, of just constantly just pushing as hard and fast as he could. And I was like, holy cow. And he's wearing body armor. I'm thinking, holy, what the heck? Is this a machine? And then they went and took a lunch break, and everyone left. All the cadre left except for 2. And they took the students, and for lunch, they smoked them. And it looked like they were going to smoke them, but they were just as fresh when they were done. They're carrying each other. They're running back and forth doing sprints, and they're not like, they just look normal. And I was like, these kids are robots, man. I ended up talking to the, a little bit later, I ended up talking to the E8, I think it was maybe an E9, Air Force E9 that ran that program. And he was big dude, big PJ. And he was like, yeah, man, he goes, when they came out with this program, I was 100% against it. We did it on our own, and we failed miserably. We put boots on them in a ruck and said, go. And guess what? Our success rate didn't get any better. And then he's like, we brought nutritionists in, we brought, physical therapists in, we brought fitness experts in. He goes, we were like, oh, we can do this. We'll send our guys to get certified as fitness trainers. And he goes, this wasn't the same, And he's like, these guys are doing PT in their pre-selection program 3 times a day. And I'm like, are you kidding? 3 times a day? And he goes, no. He goes, Mike, they're monitored. Like, their entire bodies are monitored the whole time they're here. And he goes, each workout is based not on what we have on the schedule, but based on their body. Like, for example, he said, their range, when it rains, it thunderstorms, it'll rain all night, and some people are like, oh, I sleep well in the rain. And he's like, well, is what we find out is the next morning, the monitor shows that they didn't sleep well, And so guess what? Now we're not doing that long run or that intense workout that we thought we were going to do. And so we modify the workout based on them, because they're like, it's all about input output, recovery, and all this, and it has to equal, because if you have too much of one thing, it's just not going to be right. He's like, it's like tuning a fine engine, like a sports car engine. How much oxygen, how much gas, what's being filtered. He goes, it all has to be exactly right for that car to win. And he goes, that's because we only have 8 weeks, 9 weeks really. He said, but the first week is basically we issue them bed sheets and stuff like that. So there's no physical activity really. But he's like, it's an 8-week program. He said they had, I think they basically got the same contract the SEAL teams had for their pre-selection. And I think it's similar to what SF is doing. I'm not sure, but the technology that they put into these programs, they're super troopers, and can't really say enough about them.
Well, and I think it's something occurred to me while you were telling the story, because I've thought about the same things, right? I mean, they're working out so much smarter now than we did. The training is so much more intelligent than it was for us. I mean, for us, it was basically thrive or die. Like it was throw you in the deep end, and if you drown, you weren't cut out for it. But I think it's the logical results, because if you think about it, one of like the SF kind of unofficial mottos since the beginning of, and I don't mean just RSF, I mean SOF in general, right? Special operations in general, has always been to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
So for decades, we've had people figuring out smarter ways to do things, and it's getting better all the time, I think. I mean, I really do.
Yeah, no doubt. I worked when I was working GRS, I worked with a SEAL, or former SEAL, and he was a BUD/S instructor, and he was telling me about one of the things they used to have was they would swim out to one of the tests. They would swim out to some buoy or whatever, and then come back, right? And he said that was like one of the high attrition things that they had to do during BUD/S or Hell Week. I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with it, but he had gone to some kind of immersion swim program where they talked about making your body more aerodynamic when you swim, and he went to this program. He was so impressed with it. He ended up getting like several of his other instructors certified in this swim technique. And so they did it, and they had like, instead of a 10% pass rate, they had a 90% pass rate or some crazy number like that. And the commanders are like, we got to make it harder. He's like, what? Let's move the buoy out further. It's like, but it's a typical mentality. Like, we want to make it better. And then this guy, that E9, that Air Force E9, said the same thing. He's like, they created the pre-selection program so they could have more people pass selection. And then they get to the point where they surpass that. And now they're talking about making selection harder. And he's like, well, wait a minute, don't move the goalposts, but it's weird that we see that kind of stuff. And I wonder, if, what we would be like if we had been young and gone through that program where
now. Yeah.
So hopefully they won't be as broke as we are,
Oh God. Yeah. No, I hope so. So my last gig for 20th Group was I was running our training team for guys that we had pre-selected and we're going to send off to selection in the Q course, right?
Oh, nice.
And I did it with my team leader and my team sergeant for my ODA. We just took it over. Like, we ran the program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really proud of that program because we had such a high pass rate when we sent them to selection.
Yeah.
Because we just wouldn't send them until they were ready. Basically, if they didn't get selected when we sent them, it was either because they got hurt or they did something off duty that got them in trouble.
Okay.
It was never anything in the actual training, right? And I'm not saying we were as sophisticated as what's going on now. This was years ago. But we had kind of that mindset of, how do we get these kids, first off, how do we pre-select them to make sure we have the right potential, right?
Yeah.
Not just guys that don't have it. But then how do we get them ready? How do we make sure that they're going to make it, that they're going to pass?
Mm-hmm.
How can we stack the deck in their favor?
Yeah.
And obviously I can't take full credit for the program. I mean, like I said, I was with my team leader and my team sergeant, but I'm really proud of how we did it and the people we got in. And by the time I retired, I would go to our Christmas party and half the company at least were people that we had put through.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of a cool feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's awesome.
And hell, now most of them are like senior leadership in the company now.
Yeah. No, it's funny. You know, I've been out since 2005. We're talking 20 years, you know, and, you know, people are always telling me, oh, you know, I ran into one of your guys when I was on this deployment. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, he's a military active duty, you know, or something like, bro, I've been out for 20 years. There's no way, you know? And then, you know, I ran into, we did something, and this colonel, they're introducing this colonel, you know, and everyone's like, why is everyone like, why are the military folks dressed up today? Like, they don't usually dress up today. They're not, you know, they got haircuts and everything. And next thing I know, they're walking around with this colonel, and he's like, oh, he's a senior doc, whatever, for this organization. And they're introducing him, and this is Captain so-and-so. And he looks over at me and he goes, this is Mr. Green. And he's like, oh, I know fucking Mike Green. And he comes up and gives me a big hug. And I'm like, holy cow. It's like, you look just like you did, you know, 30, 40 years ago, but in the Q course, you were the 18 Delta on my phase team, you know? I mean, what a small world, you know? And now the guys, you know, same thing. I had some sergeant major come up and give me a hug. Like, hey, Mike. And I look at him. He goes, oh, you probably don't remember me. He goes, but I was in the Navy, and you convinced me to go switch over to the Army, go to Army, you know, go to SF selection. It's like, I remember that instant, but I don't remember you, you know, because that was at a bar. You know? But yeah, and wow, you know, it's really weird to still see people, you know, that were younger, or you know, like this other guy, Dave, that was, you know, old, and then you know, old as me, but you know, he progressed through ranks and stayed in for a lot longer, you know. But I mean, the world's small, you know.
No, especially and not even just in SOF. If you carry a gun for a living, you're like 3 steps removed from everybody else in the Western world that does. You know, everybody in our society specifically, right? You know somebody that knows them without a doubt.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of the great things, you know, that I've had, I didn't really mention though, but, you know, being on the pro staff for Sons of Liberty Gunworks, right?
Yeah.
So I met those guys through Scott Jedlinski, you know?
Yeah.
And he introduced me to them, and he was like, hey, you guys should talk to Mike. He's in this area now. I was like, wow, you know? And that relationship has just, you know, spawned. I mean, those guys are amazing. You know, I don't know if you've ever shot one of the. I think you shot one.
I have. No, I have. Yeah, I have. And I've met those guys. They're good people. They're solid.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, like you said, you know everybody in the community. You know, I don't know if you ever had the pleasure of going to or training with or just meeting Todd Green.
I did not. I knew of him, and I've got a bunch of friends that did train with him.
Yeah,
but I never got to. And I really wanted that fast coin too, and I just never got the chance.
Yeah. But I was at the range with him, and then after the range, and we didn't know each other that well. I'd taken a course from him, and then I ran into him at a range. He's like, hey, well, why don't you know, we'll do some drills together. I'm like, okay. And then we go. On the way back, he's like, hey, let's stop off at this Mexican place and eat, right? Oh, great. You know, he's like, it's right on the corner. So we're sitting there, we're talking, and he's like talking, and he said something, and I said something about Simon. He goes, are you talking about Simon so-and-so? I go, yeah. He goes, get out of here. He's my best friend. I go, no, yeah. I knew him. I met him in overseas in Lebanon. He's like, no way. This is, you know, and just like, bing. Picks up the phone and calls right away, you know? And there's just like a ton of other dudes. Like there was a guy I went to the Q course with that we later found out that basically was one of the guys who told him about the appendix. He's like, you know, that's a guy, you know, and Todd was, you know, one of the forebearers, I guess, of like really creating the culture of the appendix carry.
Yeah, the modern appendix carry.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, that guy, that guy you went to the Q course with, he was the first guy who showed that to me. And he goes, I was 100% against it, you know. But an SF guy showed him that. I was like, wow, man, the world is small. You know, you think about all these guys. You know, it was interesting. I think I I had posted something or saw you post something when John Holston passed, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, I knew John when he was an 18 Delta instructor. And I ran into him and was talking to him about some handgun retention stuff. And he's go on over to the gym and we'll go over some handgun retention stuff. And somebody was like, hey, you know that guy is? I'm like, hey, he's an 18 Delta instructor that's into all this ninja stuff, you know, like he's a martial artist, you know?
Yeah.
And he's a shooter too. And he's like, no, he's like, he also teaches for Greg. Yeah, I think it's Hamilton at Insights. And, you know, they were kind of a big deal in some of the magazines back then. I was like, really? And I looked it up and I was like, holy cow, this guy, because I guess he was in Washington State. And then next thing I know, he retires. And then I go to an Insights course and there's John.
And there he is.
Again, I'm like, wow, man.
So I first met John. I was in the Q course. I was in the academic phase, right? I was in phase 2. I don't know what phase it is now. They've changed all the numbers now. Who knows?
Yeah.
And I used to, basically, we would do PT in the mornings and we would go do our own workouts at lunch and just like grab a quick drive-through meal so we'd have time to work out, right?
Yeah.
So we went to one of the gyms on Post and there's a guy on the mat, on the combatives mat, and he's doing footwork, but it's not boxing footwork. It's not, you know, karate footwork. It's not, and there really wasn't really MMA to speak of back then. Right. And I'm looking at him like, that looks like some kind of jiu-jitsu, like Japanese jiu-jitsu, not Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you know, like the stand-up stuff. I just walked up and introduced myself and I'm like, hey, what are you working on? He's like, Aiki jiu-jitsu. I'm like, can you show me some stuff? And we wound up working out together a few times while I was in the Q course.
Wow.
And then years later, 2004, I'm in Basra, Iraq. And this guy, like, because you know how it was with TC, like guys would rotate in and out. You didn't all start the tour at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So this guy shows up and I'm like, that's John Holston. And I can't tell you how many conversations we had in our hooches late at night about tactics and martial arts and shooting. And
wow.
Yeah, such a good guy, man. He was an example of how people can not have a large volume of time in your professional development, but have a huge influence on your professional development that carries on. Yeah. The things like, because I mean, we only worked out together a few times. We had conversations for, 6 months, however long we overlapped in Basra. But those workouts and conversations resonated with me throughout my entire training lifetime, right? Like he had such a profound effect on me with such a small amount of duration. And man, that stuff is so valuable. It's just precious.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. I can't say enough about that impact, of someone who just, I mean, he didn't know me from Adam, but he's taken the time out of his time to show me stuff, and it goes back to that mentorship thing that you were talking about earlier. Like this guy's an SF guy and he asked, so I'm going to help him out,
Well, it's the same experience I had. I walked up, I was like, what are you working on? And he goes, Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. I'm like, can you show me some? And next thing I know, I'm getting bitten to a pretzel on the combatives mat. It's like 50 times in a row, Nah, such a good guy.
Yeah. No, well, what a surprise, huh? What a shock. But it just, I think that, having the fortune of working with guys like that, it just, and you meet people who, whatever background they have, that's the one thing I think that's most fortunate about us is because of our community that we worked in, guys like John were not a rarity. They were common, and we see it every team I was on. We had fantastic folks, I mean, you don't always agree with everybody. And the other thing is you don't know what you have until you're gone or until it's gone. And then you realize that was the best time of my life. That was the best team I've ever been on. And then you go to another team, and then, once you get out completely, you're like, oh my gosh, it was easier, I think, for me when I got out because, I started working with Triple Canopy, awesome folks there, and then I went over to, the GRS group, started working with those guys. And it was the same kind of an assembly of folks who were, you know, Force Recon, Navy SEALs, Rangers, SOF, and it was just like, man, I'm working around the same type of, you know, people that are just outside the box thinkers. And we saw them, you know, on a daily basis, and they all were, you know, I mean, obviously people have their faults, you know, but
right.
In general, I mean, we worked around great people, and it's just like, you know, I wouldn't be anywhere the person I am today if it wasn't for the people that had mentored, molded, and shaped me into what I am. And, you know, I mean, it's just this little stuff. Like, I remember we took a class from Jerry Barnhart, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to shoot like that, you know? And there were guys, you know, that were like, hey, you can, you know, Dave Harrington would talk about dry fire. Like, dude, like, how did you make, you know, master? And, he said that he took a red gun with him whenever he went TDY or deployed and didn't have access to a real gun. And he would, in his hotel room, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And he would just, you know, go on about, dude, dry fire, you know? But,
that was another huge loss for the community too, was Dave.
Yeah. But and it's such a short period of, you know, the between Dave and John. It's like, wow, man. But yeah.
So something I always tell people when they ask about my careers, right? And I'm saying the police career too, because it's different, but there are parallels, you know.
Yeah.
And if I talk to somebody who's like formally educated, who's been to the college or whatever, I'm like, well, you know, if you look at like the Iliad or the Legends of King Arthur, you know, and you look at those larger than life characters, flawed but almost superhuman, like that was my peer group. Like you know, somehow they let me in.
Yeah, no, it's really, it's awesome, you know, that if I look back and look at all the guys that I worked with and where they all have gone, you know, some of them are real low key, you know, but they had a huge impact. You know, they don't talk about what they did, and they're, you know, off doing other things. They're not on social media and stuff like that. And then you've got guys who, you know, became fabulous firearms instructors. And it's like, it was really unique to see and train with Dave in the outside world, you know? And then also, you know, guys like John, you know, it was a couple years ago, we were doing a thing in, I think, where was it? Tennessee. And it was just like, wow, man, it's like, it felt like, I don't know, it felt like, well, seeing him made me feel like I was a kid again, almost, you know.
Yeah.
Like, it was good to catch up with him. But you know, every time you see these guys and you're just like, well, I know that guy, worked with them, you know. And it's just, it makes you realize how fortunate you were, you know. A lot of people are like, hey, you know, I mean, oh, Mike, you're a master class shooter, and you know, you were a Falcon instructor, and you know, you were in a SIF and this and that. I'm like, that's nothing compared to the guys I worked with, you know. They're the awesome dudes, you know. And they're just a lot of them aren't on the internet, you know. A lot of them aren't, you know. I mean, guys like Daryl Conrad, he's like the Socrates of CQB, you know.
Yes, he is.
You know. But I mean, he should have his own podcast and just talk tactics, you know, just a 5-minute talk from Dave about how to clear a corner, or, you know, how to set it. Just, you just couldn't get enough.
Yeah. No, I could listen to that guy talk CQB for hours, like until I'd been awake so long I fell unconscious. Like that's how long I'd be able to listen to it. You know, or like Frank talk about visual processing for shooting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like it's crazy because he's such a physical guy, you know. Like I remember watching him do CQB, and I was like, bro, like you definitely have a different step than everybody else, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, and he's just so physically, like, I wouldn't say gifted, because he works so hard. I would hate to say gifted, because people, he works hard, you know. And then when he, you know, became a grandmaster, you know, one of the things he talked about was visualization, and, you know, how the eyes move. And I was like, bro, I thought you were going to tell me how, you know, how many reps you did or something like that. Or, you know, it's just, but it was all about, stuff that, you just wouldn't expect,
Yeah.
It's just a testament to the types of people that we work with. And he's just, just one of those guys that just like can probably talk for, like you said, hours, if not days or more about stuff like that.
I used to love it at Suffolk when he would wind up at the office and I'd corner him and we'd just sit there over beers and just talk shooting and tactics.
Yeah.
And like, I've been so fortunate to know these people and to work with them.
Yeah. It's amazing. And, I will reiterate, to a lot of folks out there who feel like they missed their prime. It's never too late, man. Go, go join the National Guard SF, and there's all kinds of great pre-programs you can go through and get in shape. There's I don't know if you heard of 18 Alpha. What's that? 18 Alpha PT or something like that. He's out of Texas. He's also
I'm trying to remember what it's called, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's like the prep stuff. And
he runs a program, and there's other programs out there. And like I said, there's a guy in my Q course and my selection who was in his 40s, man.
Yeah, no, it can be done. It really can.
So,
you know what, my friend, we have already gone over an hour. We haven't even scratched the surface. I would love to have you come on again if you don't mind, because we didn't even really talk that much about martial arts or shooting yet.
Oh yeah.
We didn't even really get to it.
We could do the SF thing and plan.
we could actually plan. We could actually have a plan.
Yeah.
I got to admit though, with the podcast thing, one of the big reasons I do this is I get to have the kind of conversations I used to have around the burn barrel or sitting at the office of Frank Proctor. And just let the conversation wander. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we could probably spend an entire episode just talking about competition shooting and how it relates to CQB or SOF or, practical shooting. I think that's, one of the biggest things out there that, we've seen a huge, and I'm sure you remember the day when if you were a soft guy or a cop and you did USPSA, everyone laughed at you,
Yep.
I could tell you stories about going to the North Carolina Tactical 3-gun, and you would hear people like kind of talk a little bit of crap about Viking tactics.
Kyle Lamb.
It's like, what are you talking about? Guys, phenomenal, And then after he shoot, they were like, "Oh my gosh, like that's And then their ears would perk up, and want to know more about that,
Yeah.
So I think we could probably just do a whole episode on that alone,
No, absolutely, and or like the parallels with martial arts training too. Oh, that's a whole other rabbit hole we could go down to great depth, right?
Oh yeah.
Before we wrap up this one though, tell everybody a little bit about Green Ops and how to find your guys and schedule classes and all that stuff, because it's out there and people need to pursue it.
Yeah. So amazing crew of folks that teach, firearms. If you go check out our website and you look at the instructors, read their bios. Amazing folks, very talented individuals. We got, grandmasters, master class shooters, soft guys, folks who've been around the world. And then we've got guys who have really done, nothing, uniquely special, but they're phenomenal instructors, and they all work together. And they just have a way, when students come, they leave very happy that they came and trained with us. We have in Northern Virginia, we have several ranges up there. We have a range in North Carolina. We've got a crew down there, and then we've got a crew in Texas. But it's green-ops.com. And, we've got a course. I'm sure if you look for Green Ops Inc. on, Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, you'd see us. But our main page is green-ops.com. And that has a link to our social media, stuff like that. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of us. We do mobile training. We'll run training in other locations if someone needs it. But you name it, pistol, rifle, shotgun, we do it. We have regular classes, and then on occasion we get requests to do, specialty type classes. We've run those. We've run classes for military and law enforcement, stuff like that. But yeah, that's probably the best place to find us.
And I definitely, I can't give your crew a high enough recommendation. I mean, the classes are solid, they're sound. It's not just a bunch of drills thrown together. It's actually got, a training plan and a methodology, and it will make people better. Yeah. So guys should definitely check that out. And really, thanks for coming on, brother. I really appreciate it. It's been a little while since we talked. It's good to catch up.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
So, well, I hope everybody else enjoyed the episode as much as I did. Definitely check out Mike and Green Ops. And please do me a favor, because the algorithm hates me. Do that whole like, subscribe, all that other stuff that I have to ask you to do since I'm on YouTube. And I will talk to everybody next time.
Right on.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way Is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.